Saturation 3 is the final entry in the Saturation trilogy, and as such was kind of an end of an era for Brockhampton. After dropping a music video for the lead single and opening track Boogie, what is now one of the most beloved Brockhampton songs, the band released the record and ended what was, for them, an insanely prolific year. Saturation 3 was received well, albeit not quite as warmly as the first two records before it, mainly because of Saturation 2's immediacy and the original record's ability to grow on the listeners, and because Saturation 3 saw a slight departure from the last two records. Of the three, it's easily the most off-kilter and experimental record, taking all the things that made their production style idiosyncratic and turning it up to 11. Even the previously mentioned song Boogie sounds like if you filtered Death Grips through Caro Caro Bonito. From then on, the record is distinctly more adventurous and sour, which explains why it took fans longer to truly latch onto it. It yielded some show-stopping moments like the ambitiously structured Sister Nation, that's one half aggressive posse cut and the other half vaporwave hip-hop song. Even songs like Hottie, that are littered with catchy hooks, have an edge to them that was previously pretty sparse. But the beats here are soaked in distortion, vocals are processed much more harshly, and the flow of the record isn't quite as rock-solid as their second effort. However, I think there's an argument to be made that Saturation 3 is actually the biggest grower in the band's catalog, as there's something to truly love about each and every song here. It shows the band progressing in real time over the course of 1 year, showing that they weren't afraid to take risks and go out of their established wheelhouse, seeing as there was nothing stopping them from playing it safe and capitalizing on it again. They would also later build off of this in their next record, Iridescence. In that regard, releasing the strangest record they'd made thus far was probably a good idea, seeing as they'd already acquired a massive following anyway, so anyone already on board was going to get on with this eventually, but it also reassured the public at large that they were far from done evolving, paving the way for the road ahead. With Saturation 3 behind them, they signed to RCA and began working on a brand new trilogy of albums right away. Join me and the others on the podcast this week as we talk about their first record in their new trilogy of records, in our record club, the ever-controversial Iridescence. As for Saturation 3 here, I won't pretend it was always an album I considered as good as the first two, but with time I've come to love it just as much, as it contains everything that made the previous two records good, and while not as accessible and slightly more challenging, it's also the album of theirs that remains the most fresh and exciting. 9 out of 10.